Hi there, I am Adam Kirbas and this is my novel, The Supermarket Murder, Detective Matthew Sas' first case. I was in Turkey, not on vacation, but my family originated from there, and I went to check out the old motherland, the land of my grandfathers. I was living in the US, and I had got used to living in the US. I would not exchange it for the world. I am one of those people who cannot live outside their comfort zone. However, I kept receiving messages and about the family property in Turkey that new vicinities were drawn, new property borders, that I should pay the taxes, and so on and so forth. So I went to Turkey, not on a vacation, but to get rid of this family property once and for all, and sever the connections to the home country of my grandparents. When I arrived there in Ordu, in this small town for American purposes and understanding small town, however, in Turkey it was considered a big city. I was struck, firstly, with some sort of a notion that I have arrived in a different world part, a different civilization. This is something you indeed perceive. This is something you get indeed well aware of. Things are different here. However it is, I wanted to get done with the business, move on, and ideally return to my life in the States. So I got myself a cab, drove to the property of my grandparents. I actually haven't been there, and never before. I've seen the photos my grandparents and parents would show around whenever we had guests, and this is some sort of a snobism, I would say, within the middle class to some, in a way, to assert their diversity, to assert their multiculturalism, and you some sort of cram up some old photos, some old year books, especially when the current policy disapproves white middle class bearings. However, in one of those occasions, I thought about the home as well. I thought about the home parents, the home country of my parents as well, and it was filled with a lot of mysticism, with surreal worlds, with imaginative fairy tales derived from stories of 1001 Night and so on. But when I arrived in Ordu, it was just an ordinary city, people minding their own business. They were not worried about anything. There were no lamps, there were no flying carpets, there were no people wearing turbans and so on. It was just an ordinary life, people moving somewhere. I entered the property of my parents. It was run down. I knew it. I pretty much expected it. No one had really lived there. I could immediately see that over the years the rain had worn down on the building. It looked like a dilapidated house, and when I saw it, I kind of asked myself whether it was worth it, whether it was worth coming here for whatever means necessary. But I wasn't alone. I didn't want to go. I take the voyage all by myself. I came up with an old friend of mine whom I met in college in Wisconsin, and who happened to be Turkish. His parents were well off. They could send their boy to an American college. His name was Murat. We some sort of get on well through him. I learned a little bit of Turkish, so he kept the connection, kept up the connection with the home country of my parents, and he actually convinced me that I should take a look at the property, that I should be aware of my roots and so on. I some sort of swept it aside. I said to him mockingly, yeah, well, I would get rid of it. Why do I have to live in somewhere else than in the States? He did not understand, because during his tenure in college, he had an ideal notion of his home country. This where everything seems to be perfect, and everything that's worse is some sort of abroad. And he later on went back to Turkey. He became a police commissioner in a district in the Black Sea region. He did well for himself, and he was pestering me years after years when I would finally go to Turkey and visit the property. I should have done it way earlier. And in the end, I gave in. I didn't know what to do. I was some sort of. I didn't have any cases. I was working as a private detective. Well, it is many things has changed since Sherlock Holmes. So you do not live well from as a private detective. You barely scrape by. I actually always thought that this job would be transitory. I was never a real sleuth. I never considered myself a real detective. However, I read a lot of detective novels. I understood somehow how people thought. I had attended some psychological courses, and it worked out well. It worked out well so far. However, for a couple of months now, I was running dry. People did not bother me at all, and those who bothered me, they were some sort of minor incidents which you could solve easily. The main cases I had to deal with were actually betrayals. This meant that a spouse or a betrayed husband or a betrayed wife would need proof, especially when it comes to trial in a divorce court. They wanted me to film their treacherous spouse during the act or whatever, and this is how I would make my money. I actually had never investigated any murder or something before I went to Turkey. However, when I saw the house, the apartment, I decided against Murat's suggestion that I should sleep there one night. I thought, hell no. I mean, I saw the building, I saw the dilapidated home. I said to myself, no way are you going to sleep there, hell no. You will probably catch something. So I got myself a motel. It was a pretty decent motel near the Black Sea coast. Ordu is a Black Sea town, so pretty much nice. After all, I said to myself, the view is marvelous. So maybe this entire vacation is not all in vain, because I was clear the moment I saw the dilapidated home that I would not have a home here anymore. This was not my place anymore. This was the home and the place of my grandparents, who built this home for them and maybe for future generations, but I did not intend to live in it, and they did neither. They died before enjoying their dreams to live in their home country. However, I enjoyed the flair. I went through the bazaar. I bought some souvenirs for myself. I mean, I was living all alone. I did not have much friends. I didn't care. I'm socially awkward. I have always known. And I actually did well being alone, because the point being is socially being in society meant a lot to know about social etiquettes. It meant that you would know your words around things, while I knew I was not that guy, and it was sometimes pretty much embarrassing. I sometimes didn't know how to proper behave, how to proper conduct myself in order to save myself from a lot of embarrassment. I would keep quiet most of the time. I would some sort of hold in, would seclude and hide my thoughts, because you never know what people might say. However, despite I'm being socially awkward, Murat had a high opinion of me. And I would lie if I would say I would know why. However, he called me his friend, and I did it likewise. And after enjoying a couple of days in this provincial town, Ordu, I got a phone call from Murat. Hey, where are you? Oh, well, I said. I was surprised. I was eating an ice at that moment. Yeah, well, I'm just enjoying the view. Oh, good. Look, do you have time looking over for something? Time, I said. I mean, I was on a vacation, but I was in Turkey. I was not quite sure what he wanted me to look over. So I said, sure. What is it? He said, there happened a murder right where you are. It is around the corner. There is a supermarket. and there happened a murder. And I was shocked when he told me about that. I said, why me? I have never investigated a murder, despite the fact that I was really thrilled. I have seen a lot of murder scenes on the news, in TV, read about it in crime novels, but I had actually never seen one. And now he talks about murder, and I was indeed curious. I asked myself, how do Turkish people kill others? How murder is happening? However, I did not think that it was suitable for me to barge in. I mean, I was pretty much aware that I'm a foreigner here, that I'm not a local, and I pretty much understood that this would probably be conceived differently. There is this guy, this foreigner, this American, and he some sort of snoops around. Man, this looked for me like another embarrassment. This was pretty much clear. So I declined. I said, oh, well, I'm here on vacation. I mean, I didn't want to say I'm too green to investigate a crime. I had never investigated a murder before, even though I wanted to say it, but something inside me refrained from it. I just said, well, I'm on vacation, despite I was actually already getting bored of it. Well, walking around all day long, buying stuff on a bazaar, for whom, I don't know, just for myself. Well, I was bored, but he insisted, no, you are the man. Matt, I need your help. And this struck me as odd, because I could not think how I could help him. This was weird, because I was well aware that in Turkey the police force is sophisticated. They don't need foreigners to help them. I told him, look, Murat, I'm pretty much sure that the Turks have good investigators. I don't want to get into anything here. But he responded, no, Matt, the police force here is very political. It is a hustle. It is a hustle to get the right guy to investigate this crime. I cannot trust anyone, and this looks pretty much serious. The guy seems to be a tourist, and you know what this means. A lot of issue with the foreign office, the media. Everyone will devour it. I need a set of unbiased eyes looking over the crime scene. I was thoughtful. A crime scene. Oh, of course. I wanted to see that crime scene, but I didn't want to promise anything. Well, I was pretty much scared, and despite the fact that I thought of myself as a good sleuth, yet I did not think of myself sophisticated enough to solve a murder mystery, and here in a foreign country. I didn't want to promise, but I was curious. So I replied, well, I could look over the crime scene. I could do that. But that's all I'm gonna do. He thought about it and then said, well, that's all right with me, as long as you report to me and only to me. Thank you, old friend. And he ended the phone call. I knew he was lost in thoughts, because I was about to ask where this supermarket is, which place, but he had already ended the phone call. And I thought to myself, this must be really serious. But I didn't have to look for the crime scene too long. I saw in the distance some onlookers had gathered around a supermarket. I approached the crowd. I immediately saw that the street was dirty, despite the fact that it was a sunny day. It was almost dry. It was, Turkey was going through a dry period, and yet there was dirt on the street. It was water splashing around, some gardeners, all mashed the mud, and I could see some of the onlookers had dirty shoes, and I approached them cautiously. I didn't want to barge in. I just wanted to observe. And it was an ordinary supermarket, an ordinary Turkish supermarket, and it was some sort of, you would say, where people of the lower classes would buy their stuff. It is a discounter where you have cheap products. You don't get label stuff like you would get in an ordinary high or middle class supermarket. It was an ordinary supermarket, and I saw the crowd gathered around the supermarket as well. I analyzed their clothes, their hands, their hair, their teeth, their health issues. And I saw that most of the folks who had gathered in front of the supermarket were probably from a poor background. Probably people who are doing odd jobs, people who are barely scraping by, was some workers and so on. So this was not the middle class which buys their food at fancy European supermarkets or at fancy hypermarkets. And I wondered, why would a tourist go inside such inside this supermarket because I knew the currency was in fall. This meant, as a foreigner, if you would have dollars or euros, you could afford fancy stuff, fancy dinners. So it struck me as odd why a tourist would buy stuff in a supermarket where mostly poor people buy products. Maybe he some sort of was lost. Maybe he wanted to ask for direction. But I looked around me and I understood that we are pretty much close to the center of the city. In the center of the city, there are a lot of shops, some noble boutiques, expensive furniture houses, expensive restaurants, fancy restaurants, and so on. So, well, if he got lost, he could have asked someone in those fancy restaurants. Why? Because those waiters and personnel in those fancy restaurants, they must speak English in a way or another. So in the average Turk on the street is not able to speak proper English. It's not even enough to get directions. And as a foreigner, you know you have to go into those restaurants which are used to hosting tourists. They speak some sort of an English, but it is enough for you to get what you want. I waited there. In the distance, I saw a car arrive. It was a police car, and Murat got out. He was thoughtful. Something was in his mind. I approached him slowly. I didn't know what I should do. Should I keep my distance? He saw me and he brightened up a little bit. "How are you, old friend?" he said, trying to cheer himself up. "I'm fine," I said. Fine. He echoed. He didn't know what to say. He was thoughtful for a moment. And then he said, "Well, how is your vacation so far?" "Fine, it's fine." "Look, I'm sorry that I drag you in to this." No, don't be, but I cannot promise you anything." I know. But, here things are different. I just want your opinion on that thing. That's all. "Okay," I said hesitantly, because I saw that his gaze was fleeting. I saw that he was analyzing the people who were standing around him, and he was thoughtful, almost distressed. Then, as if he had remembered a thought, he grabbed something from his pocket and gave it to me. "This will help you with the police," he said. it was an police ID. It was all in Turkish. I could understand some of it. I spoke a little bit Turkish. I saw my photo and I saw a police badge. He said, just be at ease. No one will ask you something. They know that you are coming. I was surprised, but I did not respond. And then Murat moved ahead. He talked with some other police officers. I was abandoned there, in the middle of the crowd. I didn't quite know what to do of it, what to make of it. After a while, I decided to fake confidence and just walk in to the supermarket. I cleaned my shoes. I put on a forensic overall and walked in to the supermarket. The first impression of the supermarket was that I could smell floor soap, and it was very intense. I looked at the floor and it was splendidly clean. It was actually as if someone had cleaned it right before. I continued. I saw that in the supermarket there were actually no cars. I wondered, when this murder happened, didn't these people just flee the supermarket at once and left everything where they was? Everything was in nice shape. No food on the floor. No water spilled. Customers did, as it seems, not storm out of the supermarket when this murder happened. I continued walking through the supermarket. And the supermarket, it was stuffed. It was full. It looked like they hadn't opened so far. I looked on my watch and I noticed it is midday. And the supermarket was pretty much located in the center. And apparently, people stood away from it. Of course, in Turkey, people get up late. I know, of course, in Turkey, normally you start your day around 9, 10 a.m. So it's not like in what I was used to, getting up at 6 a.m. and then heading to work at 7 a.m. So maybe people didn't got up early. Maybe people were on the way to the supermarket. I didn't know, but no shopping carts. This struck me as odd. And in addition to that, it was a Wednesday, so it was not after a weekend. It was not a Sunday morning. It was not Saturday morning. No, it was a Wednesday in the middle of the week, and yet it seemed like the supermarket was deserted. I walked a while, and then I saw the floor was soaked in blood. And you could smell the pungent soap, floor soap, but it intermingled with all the toilet, like someone who is using it too much, too profusely. And you can see the blood. It has spread all over the white floor. I cautiously approached the dead corpus. He was lying face down. He had a black jacket on. It was one of those thick jackets you wear in somewhere in Canada, well, especially when the winter is very cold. I looked out of the window. It was winter indeed, but here in Turkey, winter is like autumn in Wisconsin. It is not cold. It is pretty much bearable, and because of the Black Sea, you have a mild climate here in Ordu. This means that the summers are normally, if there is not a drought, moist, and the winters are moderately cold. But the thick jacket just did not make sense. It was cold outside. It was sunny outside. People outside the supermarkets, those onlookers, they were wearing thin jackets. So I wondered, why is this corpus wearing a thick jacket? And then I saw that one hand was tucked out, like someone who was trying to undress his jacket. Maybe he, as a tourist, had a wrong impression about Turkish climate. Maybe he didn't quite know what he could expect. Well, these things occur. There are some young folks who just travel or want to travel the world randomly, or who travel through travel agencies. Those last call flights where some people cancel their flights or vacation on the last minute, and you can buy these vacations for a bargain. Maybe something like that happened, and this young man, assumably it is a man because he has short hairs and his hair are not grey, so I assume he's young, that this young man thought, he will travel the world, bought himself a very cheap bargain, and it would all work out well. And he sort of stuffed his bag with winter clothes, expecting he would freeze in Turkey. However, I slowly approach the corpus. I don't want to tread in to the blood. And I look at his shoes. And this again strikes me a lot. Because his shoes are summer shoes. So this means if he's wearing such a thick coat, why is he not wearing thick boots? It would make sense. And the next thing I realize is that there are no shoe prints on the floor. And this despite the fact that outside, because of the water fountain, it is muddy, it is filthy. I had to clean my shoes before I put on the forensic overall. But here, the shoes are clean. No footprints. And the shoes look like that someone hasn't been flipping in to the shoes properly, but was walking on the back side of the shoes. Because people here in Turkey, they do not walk in to their homes with shoes. So whenever you go into a Turkish homes, you have to you are either provided by slippers or you enter it with your socks. This is mandatory, and if you do, you will be reminded that you should not do so. And because always to get in and get out of your shoes, this is pretty much annoying, and this is the reason why people go in wear their shoes half. Don't slip into their shoes fully, but work on the back side of the shoes, because it is then easier to get in and out of your shoes, especially when they are summer shoes. But this man supposed to be a foreigner, so this means, why was he taking off his shoes? Maybe he had family here. Maybe he knew someone. This makes me thoughtful. And I see through the blood that he was shot in the head. You can pretty much see that around his skull there are parts of brain, tissues, skull. And I wonder, why would anyone shoot a tourist in a supermarket?